All right. Hello, everyone.
Live with...
Oh, sorry, I stole your announcement, Sid. Go ahead.
Oh, good. You go, Fabian.
Hello, everyone. This is the GitLab Pods CEO agenda meeting. So we're kicking off. We have a few updates for you, Sid. The first one is a happy one. We have a new team member join, Rutger, who's actually on the call as well. So the Pods team is growing, which is exciting. Yeah, the second one, Sid, you remarked last time that it would be useful to cross-link to other areas that are potentially impacted by pods. So we've done that with that MR. There's a section now that highlights the cross-section impact. The summary is that workspace and organization, as we proposed it, is essentially the same entity. We'll use one, not both, so we're not duplicating any effort. The group workspace is also conducting some user research on naming, if workspace is the correct term for what we're trying to accomplish. We'll hold off renaming until we have that data. Overall, I don't think there's much conflict between the groups. I also spoke with fulfillment. Their goals, I think, align with ours. So I think at the moment, Pods is going to make some things a little bit harder, but we're in touch and there are no blockers. You have a comment?
And the rename, I think we should consider that workspaces is commonly used for kind of IDE-like environments. Both GitPods and Amazon use it for that. So I think it would be a very confusing thing to choose.
Yeah, I think this is something that I hope they can align on. I know that the remote development environment is also doing some research. I think their proposal is a little bit more IDE-like, so that may take the term workspace. I think that's good impact. Excellent. If there are no other questions, I can move to number 3. So since we spoke, we've iterated on our technical proposal quite a bit. So
I'm sorry for having a question later, but is an organization always on one pod?
Yes.
Okay, is that in the MR? Because I don't find it, but I haven't read the whole thing.
It is not in that MR, but it is in the technical proposal in the definition of the term. Yeah. So it is a single, let me just grab it for you. Yeah, I'll share my screen pretty quickly. So you can see here in the definition of an organization, one of the properties is organizations are located on a single pod, but a pod may hold multiple organizations.
Yeah, I agree with the second thing. Is that also in there? A pod may hold multiple organizations, which I totally agree with. It's logical, but does it say that?
I will have to.
You're right. You're right that the thing I asked for, that it's in there. Each pod has.
It's okay.
Each organization is on one pod. Maybe add a thing under 5 that one pod can have multiple organizations.
Yeah, I think it's clear from the picture here because that pod has multiple, but I'm not sure I've written that down. So
yeah, it's clear enough. Okay, yeah, no action needed. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Any more questions for that section? Otherwise, I'll move on.
No, that's it.
Awesome. All right, so Camille, you may have to keep me honest here, but since the last time we spoke, we've iterated on our technical proposal. We've taken the POC quite a bit forward, and there's a merge request to actually summarize the changes. The work at the moment is mostly on the routing layer, so how to get requests to the correct pod. And 2 of the findings so far are that it appears to be more efficient for a router to explicitly ask a pod where to go to, rather than randomly choosing a pod. And then what that entails is that in that architecture, we have to very likely rewrite some Rails routes because they are ambiguous. Like, for example, API v4 jobs 1, 2, 3, 4, because we don't know where that thing is. And so that's a piece of the work that we've identified.
So, I mean, this seems like to be the easiest to implement. One of the expectation of that is every pod can basically describe you where the given resource is located. So technically, at least in this architecture, it allows you, for example, to have a pod designated specifically just for that purpose, to not load other pods with this type of requests. But this is the direction that we are right now trying out, and so far it's kind of working pretty well. With one caveat that we actually have to classify a significant amount of the requests, I mean endpoints that are exposed by GitLab race. And some of them has to be changed to be really fixable to where they which pod should process them. Dan, you have, I think, the first question.
Yeah, I just had a question whether we would want to consider using subdomains here rather than rewriting different, routes and things like that. And that I know that's opening up different can of worms, but
I mean, you say subdomain for the organization.
Yeah, exactly. AT&T.gitlab.com or something, for example.
The current idea is that we use a single gitlab.com domain. I know that there was discussion in the past about using subdomains, but I think the current idea is of not using subdomains. It's using providing a single domain gitlab.com and everything being hidden from you that you are using a subdomain or any pod, and basically us doing the heavy work. There is a proposal from Andrew Newgate from the past that he actually brought the subdomain proposal. You may want to look at that, but so far we are looking at doing it the hard way.
I'm very supportive of not using subdomains. Every single time I've done that as a developer, it ended up in a mess. That's probably more me than anybody else, but it just introduces so many other weird stuff, from browser storage to cookies to whatever. So very supportive of doing it in the path. Josh?
Yeah, I was just saying, I would imagine we've considered this, but instead of maybe rewriting all these areas, if we could just prepend a pod ID to the front of a job log or something like that, and then you get the routing by default or something, then you might not have to necessarily rewrite all of them. But I don't know, just I imagine you probably thought through sort of the hacky solutions.
There's gonna be a very big topic ahead of us for the pods, because we're gonna have to figure out how we want to indicate to user that is crossing boundaries of the organization. And this is more the UX problem. And subdomains make it very clear that you are crossing boundaries of the organization, where single domain, gitlab.com, makes it harder. But we're gonna actually have to figure out with the UX research how we can want to say you that, okay, you are actually passing, copying this link from the GitLab org into your persona, or something that you should be aware, or you are clicking this link and it moves you from GitLab org to your other organization. So we put a lot of emphasis on the strong organization isolation. So we need to also provide a very good feedback to users, what is happening and when. At this moment, we don't know yet, because it's still pretty early, and it's more a product decision to figure out, once managed workspace figure out what they want to do with organizations/workspaces, but I guess this is going to be a very good moment to figure out how we want to implement that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense that this will be depend. Yeah, no, I think it makes sense that it'll heavily depend upon the implementation of workspace. If I understood your point, Camille, I think that makes sense.
Cool. Sid, you have the next two ones.
Oh, sorry, which ones are that? Yeah, makes sense to me. And I don't know. I've read a paper or blog post somewhere, Cloudflare or something, that allows for kind of redirects from the router, but they still also allow the redirect from the pod itself. And that was for cases when I think it was when the routing was laggy or something, or when they moved something. Maybe they had stable connections, maybe the routing table was out of date. I don't know what exactly it was, or stuff in flight. It was pretty elegant design, but I don't have the paper, so no dice there. Steve?
Yeah, I was going to note, I think what you're talking about there, we did this before at the last place I was at with like exactly what you're talking about, kind of a laggy lookup table that we would kind of pass through updates if we moved organizations from one pod to another. But then the routing was all done with Cloudflare workers. It actually wouldn't have to be Cloudflare workers now. There's, I mean, a lot of, but it's Cloudflare or elsewhere. A lot of clouds are kind of copying the worker concept.
Cool. Thanks, Steve.
It's interesting, Sid, if you have like somewhere a link to that, it would be great if you could share. I can think of that like in the context
I'm sorry,
of...
I don't. I just hope that it would spark a memory for somebody else.
But I think it may be relevant, and in the migration process of like organizations from pod 0 to pod 1, where we have to kind of switch where they read write to, but I
think you should almost see it as you're continually moving organizations, as kind of pods get at capacity and everything else. So you're continuously moving organizations. It's not a one-time thing.
The migration stuff is pretty tricky, but we get to that in one of the future meetings when we start thinking about the migration. And I don't know if we're gonna be able to do continuous move or like do other, but I think it's yet too early for us to discuss that. So I would move.
Makes sense.
Forward.
Yep.
So the point number 4 is mine. We had this iteration 1 that like was concluded with the video that you see it and various other people in Discord watched. I split this MR into right now iteration 2 that kind of purely focuses on the router and async rights approach. We recorded with Fabian some early router POC demo. It just shows like very early version. But these are currently like the goals for the POC of the iteration 2. We actually, I think like my primary goal is like to try to get as much of the GitLab QA passing to kind of get a sense of the major problems and how to fix them. So we could start documenting them and do like a fair assessment, how much effort it's gonna require from development and infrastructure to run that. Because I think like we collaboratively in team agree that this is like pretty large amount of the work that we have to do, and it's significantly more complex than the composition. So to give like a fair assessment, we want to start build like a map of the broken things based on this hands-on fixing with the like approach that we took for the POC, and allow like the teams to evaluate how much effort it would take. It's still not going to be like super complete, but should give us like some rough estimate how many things we have to fix in order we get like the iteration 1 in the production, where maybe we can create some new organizations on the new another pod. So this was the point number 5 in the TLDR.
Yeah, thanks, Camille. I think this is the right approach because it makes the work much more concrete, and we'll have something to point at and say, this is what we found, this is what you can evaluate. So I think this is great. Cool. Sid, you had put something down for 6. Not sure if that's still relevant.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting what we're doing here, and I'm really enjoying Camille's work.
Thanks for the feedback. I think it is exciting, and yeah, we're moving in some direction, which is cool. Right, are there any other questions or concerns for now? All right, then that would conclude this meeting. Thank you everybody for contributing, and we'll see you in the next one.